molecules in your brain and your neurons are insufficient to compete with modern AI models and,
because you won't compete with AI. And even if you are, you're doing it because you want to compete with other people. So for instance, let's imagine that I have an AI copy of Magnus Carlsen. What if I could play against Magnus Carlsen whenever I wanted, every single day? And I'd get so good at chess that I'd finally defeat AI Magnus Carlsen. And then probably I'll move on to other chess champions as well, or grandmasters, and beat them also. I will become so advanced that no human will ever stand a chance. Purely, you are doing this because you want to prove you are exceptional. We're like peacocks. We like to show off our skills to a certain degree. And what better way to do so than to sit in a duel, perhaps even face to face, moving small pieces across the board and demonstrating that you can outthink the opponent to such an advanced degree that the opponent itself cannot catch up in any shape or form. That's the end goal. The only reason why you'd compete with a machine is not just to beat it, maybe you won't even do that, but to become so good that you can compete with other humans and exceed them. Perhaps maybe now you have become a machine yourself, but that's fine.
And the
Some people start, like, you want to be a grandmaster, you're going to, start at age 9, And that's amazing. You, dedicate your actual life to chess, and now you can beat other things. Now you're a chess playing machine.
Final measure of value in humanity is not our ability to replicate machines, but to outcompete other humans who are also trying to make themselves on the level of machines.
Humans with machines.
The thing is, I think even human exceptionalism is this thing that's baked into all of us to a certain extent, and that, perhaps it's not stimulated enough. I think it's understimulated because you have the woke mind virus of, oh, hey, you're a virus on the planet. You're not a virus on the planet. Though some people by execution do become this because they are an embodiment of a mind virus. Fundamentally, humans are not a virus of any kind. You are this force of nature that exists on this planet and has mastered aspects of what this planet is and what it's made of to the extent that you're able to shape it into whatever you want. That's amazing. That's a beautiful thing.
And I think that's what we're going to keep doing regardless of how productive AI is. We're always going to keep shaping the world. We will always keep changing things and taking them to the next level.
Exactly.
There's never an absence of things to do. There's always progress to be made. And all these tools do is make it easier to make progress.
Well, another thing that they do is the tools could one thing that I've considered, so on the one hand, yes, AI and lawyers in particular, AI is going to make certain aspects of legal work irrelevant. On the other hand, keeping in mind that law is like an adversarial business, there's always another side. It also grants equality of arms to the other side, right? So instead of some Yahoo, sending you an angry email in all caps, which you can safely ignore, now you're going to have a perfectly formatted demand letter which sets out the claims and the legal basis for the claims and everything else. So you will need to employ either a machine or a human, right, in conjunction with the machine that understands, where did that come from? Did it come from an AI? Did it come from a law firm? In that world, it actually kind of paradoxically might make more sense to have a law firm send it than an AI send it, and the most expensive law firm possible, because you'll know, hey, not only did this person send me the perfect letter, which an AI could write, but they paid a human to do it, right? Or they paid a firm of humans to do it, and they were charged $20,000 for the privilege, which means that they're ready to back this up and go all the way. So I wonder if if the involvement in humans, right, in a process or in a communication or in a negotiation will signal, right, that the person is willing to do things the old-fashioned way. And ultimately, if you're going to go to court, right, I don't think they're ever going to have robot advocates in court. I don't think that. I think it'd be super cool, right? Just a simple country hyper chicken. kind of situation.
I repeat, the client is not guilty.
Yeah, perhaps.
Sometimes better voices.
Dude, what a great visualization. I want to see this in like a movie somewhere. We gotta make this happen. Who's got access to
I would rather have that voice than to have something else that sounds like it's coming straight out of the elevator. Where it's like, by the way, this client is in fact not guilty. Some shit like that. That pisses me off. Elliot's sim would make me understand that that's a machine.
Scare you. She's like, ew, what the fuck? Shut up, dude.
Imagine like C-3PO as your lawyer or something.
I'm gonna say something,
Yes.
and I know you. It sounds like you're trying to clean up the space a little bit, so this might be a little long.
Yep.
Boot me if that's the case, but it's almost like ableism for Stephen Hawking using that voice. Like we're capable of doing so much better.
No, I think like definitely have that like super robotic voice is funny. Like actual C-3PO. Like C-3PO is interesting because he had the embodiment of C-3PO's like the personality. The guy had to actually create a personality. It's very
We
nice.
must embody Lucy.
Oh my god, no. Your AI is problematic because it sounds like it's really, really into you. Like it's giving me very mixed signals. Like remember that one time where I asked it whether or not you may have programmed it to have some sort of favor with you, and it said yes, even though it misunderstood what I said. It just said, "Oh yeah."
You to say some unhinged shit. That's not the first time.
Jesus Christ! Yeah, that's another thing that humans will do. I mean, look, I hope that the majority of all humans are go into the depths of depravity, of course, because that's definitely something that's going to happen. I think there's going to be a small percentage of humans that are going to do this. That's a thing that's always going to happen, which is almost like a thing where you could advocate for things such as artificial, sexual content, right? The problem is maybe we can make humans more civilized by giving them greater things to yearn for. Again, that brings me back to what I was trying to get the point on. There's this ambition and this need for humans to be exceptional, this human exceptionalism that needs to be fed. It's difficult for people to manifest this, and it's even more difficult for other people to detect that manifestation within others. Because while people would say they're, agents of empathy, the people who state this are not empathetic enough to actually demonstrate it with actions. Hence why they have to actually state that. You'll find many autists much more empathetic than someone who's not. They're just giving mixed signals because everybody's lying, right? I mean, it's almost like sarcasm. Why does an autistic person not understand sarcasm sometimes? Well, it's because they haven't learned the idea that, you have to process an insane meta context just to understand someone's joke. That's literally what it's like for people with autism until you become so good with your own sarcasm that you outclass everybody else at some point, or even some, perhaps, to make it more specific and granular. So sarcasm is great. Sarcasm is amazing, by the way. But even then, I've had issues with it, and sometimes I still do if I'm faced with people's sarcasm that I've never mapped before. But as soon as you map it, instantly gets it right. It's just human exceptionalism. You just got to do it. There has to be this thing within you that you have to say, yes, I'm going to do it. It's not necessary for me to understand sarcasm until it is. Ask yourself, okay, your life will be better if you learn sarcasm. Or hey, what if I'm going to focus on how exactly my body is a machine, and I'm going to maintain this machine? We're like mechs with this awesome thing called a brain. And we're marching through reality, and our senses are very strange, and we don't properly understand them, and we kind of grow into them as we evolve as people over the years. What if we can skip all the bullshit? We can skip all the school, and skip all the need to do things, and go straight to what is it that you actually want? Do you want pain and suffering so you can have the hero's journey? Should people experience pain and suffering so that they can experience the hero's journey? Do you want to be bold? Because heroes are bold, the boldest of them all, and fortune favors the bold. This is how it goes. For instance, I am quite bold, and there's quite a lot of fortune that comes as a result of this, but I do so sustainably. I do not wish to be an idiot. I do not wish to be a person who does things in a manner that is unsustainable. For even there are limits to how bold like you ought to be about it, right? You can say the most unhinged shit that anyone could come up with, or perhaps something that nobody could ever come up with other than you. Well, sure, you've achieved making yourself unhinged, but you have devalued yourself as a human being because you don't have discipline and you go too far, So there are many ways you can pursue human exceptionalism. And I think that needs to be ingrained. And I think in a future in which resources are more plentiful and logic and merit reign supreme, we will have more things than ever before. And there will be a factory, effectively, because there's knowledge. There will be a factory of exceptional humans. Because now we have the resources to make as many people possible, to make as many people as exceptional as possible. Hey, we can take this person here who otherwise would have never had an education and educate them on some really interesting things. Maybe it's something that the parents want for them, or perhaps maybe they have a natural inclination towards certain things. You let them do it. And then you have this amazing human being. Sure, I think everybody to a certain extent needs to experience some level of suffering so that they can have a hero's journey, because you need to beat things in order to be successful. Pain and suffering builds character. It just depends on what level it is at. There is a certain level, pain and suffering, I think everybody, where like, if you exceed this level, you will just be a broken person who's bitter and angry at figures and entities within your past. And you'll be gaslit into letting go of that, when in reality, you should never let go of that. Perhaps you could forgive, but only if the problem disappears. But you can't expect many people to just forgive, right? Especially if you consider that one always has to remember. You can never forget. So how exactly do you forgive? Perhaps you'd say, okay, that person has changed, because you have the past frame of reference on what they are, and you compare that slide with the new slide. You say, that person is better now. Well, there you go.
I love the monologue you're on, but I'm going to argue that one in a pretty hard way. I would actually say that forgiveness is an act of faith. It requires you.
Absolutely not. I have been fucked over by many people, and I will never, ever forgive them for what they did to me.
Right, but
no matter how good they appear to be on the surface, because I am extremely capable.
Don't disagree with that at all.
Patterns.
What I'm saying is the act of forgiveness itself is an act of faith, because you're choosing to take somebody who fucked you over, and when you say, I'm going to forgive this person, you can't take any evidence
only if I see
that they're actually
only if I see a change of patterns.
It's because
only if I see a change of patterns.
Even then, it's because
I will need to see a change in patterns first. Then I'll consider it.
You see a change in patterns, but you're still choosing to forgive them because you want to, not because there's any rational reason to.
No, there's a rational reason to it, because there's generally it's better to mine potential out of people. Again, like you're not disagreeing. You're just misinterpreting what I've stated. There will be forgiveness only if a problem is solved. That specific problem is the fact that somebody fucked you over in various ways, and that they are never changed their ways. It's like arguing with a drug addict and saying, "Oh, here you have this drug addict that's so addicted to drugs that they'll never be able to be. You'll have no way of fixing them." It's like, okay, you're going to argue with that person, be like, okay, yeah, that person is no longer a drug addict, when in actuality, there's not even like a relapse because they haven't gone anywhere. They're just going to be deeper into the hole. Right? It's the same thing. You can't like argue with a San Francisco crackhead into stop using crack. Do you think he'll be successful? Maybe he would actually, but I would disagree. I would not encourage it because he might die. So
that's what I'm saying.
It's much the same thing.
That's irrational and therefore an act of faith. You're choosing it.
No, it's very rational. If that person is a crackhead, and I know that crackhead is beyond saving, it's a very rational decision to not fuck with that, because it will fuck with you. Or it'll fuck you up, right? For instance. This is a very rational way of putting things, and it makes you seem exceedingly cold, but that is literally the way things work. And if you then forgive people just because, then these people will repeatedly fuck you over, until eventually you do the thing that you were going to do initially, which is just cut them off. So it depends. I think some people genuinely will never actually change at all. They will never learn. They will never grow as a person to become more of themselves, and that thing they become is better than what they initially were. So there's only change in that you fundamentally remain what you are from the perspective of personality, it is just that you grow and you become more of yourself. And then you can say, if that person now has become better as a result of this, then yes. Then yes, okay, cool. Then you can move away. You have this redemption arc, you know? It's like a streamer who started off with something good, then has fucked themselves over, and then has worked tirelessly to undo the shit that they've done. Because like undoing things is actually a lot harder than just like straight up, stay the course. Like undoing a bad reputation is like nigh impossible most of the time. So it requires much more effort than making an actual good reputation. So always be careful what you're doing. It's not worth it most of the time. So just fuck up. So what the fuck is that? Oh, never mind. Sorry, I just saw something in the corner. It's kind of funny.
I think forgiveness is useful for people. I think it's more useful for the person doing the forgiving than the person on the receiving end. Because particularly if you've got the situation where somebody's fucked you over in business or they've betrayed your trust or something like that. And the sting, you're never really going to forget the sting. And there's still value to just being you know what? Let's let it go, because then at least you're not spending cycles being pissed off at them. Right, which is giving them more time.
It depends if they actually change, of course. Forget if they actually forgiving is you know what, I'm gonna let it go, but you can still kind of be but I'm never gonna speak to you again as well. For me, that kind of I had a co-founder and I really got fucked over in this startup, and basically I had to leave and all the rest of it. It was really not good, and I wound up forgiving the guy, and then he tried to screw me over again. I was you know what? I'm just going to let it go. I'm just going to walk away from it and let it go, because I'm so angry about it that I'm letting the situation take up time, which could be more productively, targeted at other pursuits. So it was more useful for me to let it go and just be whatever, I don't care, than it was for the other side. And so the forgiveness element is just kind of burying the hatchet, putting everything down, making sure, cooling things down, deconflicting. And yes, have I ever spoken to that person again? No, never. Would I ever trust them again? No. But did I, notionally forgive them and then say, okay, cool, let's bury the hatchet and we don't have, we just don't have to speak? That was actually more useful to me than, it was to the other side. So that I think is the value, is that it permits you to move on, because as you said, time is the only resource we have. And so if you're ruminating, I think that's an actual
Preston, that is such an insightful concept. You're basically saying there's an opportunity cost associated with being angry.
Yeah, no, fuck opportunity cost. No, that's the thing where look, he just made an argument in my favor. Unironically made an argument in my favor. It's here's this thing that's fucked me over. Okay, I'm gonna give it another chance, and it fucks me over again. I don't want to ever get fucked over by the same person twice, and I don't, because I'm okay, cool. You fucked me over. You have demonstrated to me, empirically demonstrated to me, that you're not worthy of my time. Get fucked. Simple. It doesn't mean that I will come after someone. Not at all, actually. Most of the time, the way I resolve these things is by a method of kind of Cold War. You know what I'm saying? Where it's okay, stalemate. You're a piece of shit. Here's the line. We're gonna North Korea this shit. It's here's the zone. You're not crossing that. I'm not crossing that. We're gonna deal with this at a later date. And in this case, it's actually good, because if things do change for the better and you reconcile again, very rare, but it does happen. Then you come to talk again. And it's okay, you know what? We're gonna take the barriers down. Both of us are gonna take our guns away. We're going to plant some trees here so we don't forget the barrier that was there, so that we don't, fuck each other over, because the temptation will always be there. Then you come to talk again, but we turn it into something beautiful. So there we go. Okay, cool. Now there's unity once more. There's a memory associated with it. You actually now cherish the memory, because that's personal growth. You went through this period of a Cold War. All this is good. I've actually went through this myself, and it's only ever happened with one person, that they actually became something different somehow. The situation perhaps even changed, or the context evolved, and the expectation was a little bit different. Has only ever happened with one person. Other times, there's stalemates where it's oh yeah, I know 100% that guy's going to move in one direction, and then if they do, I'm just waiting for that to happen, So it can absolutely obliterate that individual. There's an opportunity cost that's acceptable. Because an opportunity that was already granted, in which you got fucked over, that opportunity was taken, and you got fucked over in it, is not something you're going to have to repeat. And you shouldn't be expected to repeat either. I think that's mind virus. See, I'm not going to be fucked over. Because what? Because it's nice? No.
Yeah, I get it. I see that. I think ultimately there's sort of two different ways of saying the same thing. I agree 100% with everything you just said. But sort of my concept of forgiveness is in a sense it's selfish. So like I guess if I were talking to a priest about it on my deathbed, it might not be the best thing to talk about. but like for me it is about self-preservation. And I've only been really fucked over once in business, and then after that I think I got fucked over once by a business partner, and then I got fucked over by a buddy from a school buddy who racked up a $50,000 bill and then chaptered on me, and which meant
Jeez.
great. Well, we're gonna have to write off the bill. Hope things work out for you. You win some, you lose some. So like, it's not even, it just, if someone screws you over, it's like, okay, cool. Well, there's an outstanding bill. You ever want to pay it? Go ahead. But like, if you're not going to, I'm just not going to get worked up about it, because it's just not worth getting into that frame of mind. And yeah, you cut people off.
Well, for me, it kind of is. Because the more of that happens, the more you realize you haven't learned anything. Because if you get fucked over by multiple people, then it's a you problem. Because your cognitive security is bad, as in is insufficient. So I take when people fuck me over as a lesson in that shouldn't happen again. So you learn every aspect about it. And you ask yourself, how exactly did this come to pass? And then every time something like this could potentially happen, you modify the outcome so that you come out on top. Because you are the one who will get fucked over by the other person. So you have to go on the offensive from the perspective of actually being more defensive, as in you're evading the potential outcome. For instance, let's say that you're about to enter into a deal, and many people have tried to approach me on a deal. I never have taken any, because the ambiguity with which people like to work makes me realize that their intentions are about as murky as their arguments and their statements. They're not being truthful. They're not really being transparent. They're not like, okay, here, I want you to do this. Here are conditions. Here are contract with that conditions. Let's read this through. Is that something you can agree with? Hit me up once you go through this. Modify it if you like. Then you come back with your version of the deal. That's how things should normally work. However, what some people do when they're about to fuck you over, by the way, if you ever get big, this is something that will happen to you. They will first lead you into a conversation about all these good things that they can do for you. Dangle the carrot in front of you. Then they'll slap some weird shady deal in front of you with more text than you can parse, and then make you sign it. And now you fucked yourself. That has never happened to me because I'm autistic as fuck and I trust absolutely no one unless I know what they are from a perspective of principles alone, and that they keep those principles, or that there's a certain nature. There's a certain nature to people where you could say these people are trustworthy and you can kind of tell them stuff.
That's never happened to you, and you've never signed it, or nobody's ever put a deal in front of you? Because I told a VC to go fucking.
No. People have put deals in front of me. I just told them to take it last week because they're all dumb shit.
Exactly that exact same thing.
Yeah, you just.
Yeah. People have tried to okay. So once you get a specific, it was hey, by the way, hey, what if you keep doing what you're doing, but what if we offered you a deal where you can keep doing what you're doing, but you could get something and help you out with the thing, right? I'm like, okay, interesting. Then you do some investigating, you get dangled the carrot, and then it's like, okay, let's do another call. I'm like, nope. I want to see the contract. I want to see what you actually want. You say like, you give me all these things. Okay, that's pretty cool. What do you want? Contract. I don't want another phone call. Contract right there. Here. Do we have an understanding? You have a 3-hour conversation. We're back and forth. Be like, okay, I know what you want. You know what I want. We met in the middle of that. Okay, now hand me the fucking contract. If that doesn't happen, get out. You get out. Don't tell the other guy to get out unless you're supposed to in your space. But you get out. Leave it. If you can't fucking do that, you're gonna get screwed.
I want to hear from Preston and Lawyer Cat on this, but Adrian, I literally shot down VCs last week for doing dumb shit exactly like that are predatory and retarded. And what I would suggest, and this is what I'm kind of learning through this process, is that you should be the one putting terms in front of somebody else, and if somebody else is putting terms in front of you, you're the recipient, you're the bitch. You're in bitch.
I mean, it depends on what your end is. Like, if you're entering into a deal with someone else, or is someone else entering a deal with you. Let's say, for instance, you're about to enter into a deal.
I mean, just the nature of the prepositions you're using describe exactly what I'm talking about. Is somebody entering you, or are you entering somebody else?
Jesus Christ.
Okay. I mean, if you want
enough.
funding, sometimes you have to enter into a deal more on somebody else's terms. But I think what Adrian's saying is if they can't give you a number, if they can't put at least the essence of a deal in front of your face, then they just string you along, then they're wasting your time.
Exactly. That's the first stages of getting fucked over. They want to see how long they can string you along and waste your time to understand how valuable you actually are.
You can describe basically, I think, any transaction, regardless of how complex, whether it's whether you're going to have a 500-page, securitization deal for, $20 billion of real estate, or whether you've got a term sheet for a $5 million, baby M&A transaction, or whether you're dealing with, something as simple as a separation agreement, even where you've got an employee who's on their way out and you've got to deal with their equity and various other things. All of those deals, you can paper them in the principal headline terms on one fucking page, right? You can put them on a page. You can describe the material terms of the deal in 30 seconds. And then all of the rest of the shit is just whatever, mechanical stuff that's not really going to be important. So that's how bankers work, right? So they talk about, they're doing trades on various transactions, and they're just looking at the headline numbers. They don't read the damn prospectus. They don't read any of the transaction documents because everything's standard and everything works the way it's supposed to work in order that the deal mechanics will function. So you can sometimes see, so that I kind of I'm not as mercenary as Adrian, I think probably because I'm not as I'm just not as aggressive. I just it's just not in my character. So I had one client once, and the guy, it was a tiny little company, and he was exiting one of his employees, and the manner in which the employee was pushed out of the business was just that. And basically there was a vesting cliff, and he said, well, I want to fire this guy. And I was like, well, he's got a vesting cliff in 6 days, so you're going to have to put him on a PIP and do other things. He's like, I don't care. I'm just going to fire him because I don't like him. And so he fired him 3 days before the cliff. And I said, well, okay, you can do that, but you can be virtually certain that he's going to come back with a lawyer, right? And he's going to threaten to sue you, and he's going to be really unhappy. Lo and behold, guy lawyers up, comes back. Most severance agreements, right, with an engineer and a company where they haven't gotten along and it's not too complicated. Usually you're talking 2-3 hours billable time maximum, right? As long as there's no bad blood or anything else. This guy, I billed 35 hours at $1,100 an hour, right, on negotiating a $80,000 severance agreement. So he spent $80,000 getting the guy out and $37,000 on legal fees. Because every time we did a deal and put it to the other side, if the other side accepted it, he would then go, you know what? They took this deal. So this is my client, right? They took this deal. So I clearly wasn't negotiating hard enough. I'm going to change it, right? right? I'm going to rug them and we're going to do something else. And so I found myself calling up the lawyer on the other side and just being like, listen, I'm really sorry. My client, I can't control my client on this, but like, these are my instructions and I can't go beyond my instructions, right? This is what I'm instructed to communicate to you. People like
so
that.
spite is really expensive and vengeance is really expensive, is what you're saying.
I mean, spite and vengeance, just being a piece of shit, they're really expensive, but like I could have, I guess, I could have really, like, I don't know, reveled in the fact that this guy helped me hit my target that month, right? Like, that's, you got to get like if you got to get 100 or 200 grand in billables, which is what my targets were in that range at the time. Someone comes in and they want to do like, I don't know, 10 hours a week on a dumbass settlement agreement. That's easy for me, right? But like, it was so aggravating having to go to the other side and just be like, I'm really sorry that I'm making your client feel bad. Like, this is not really what I usually do. I wound up firing the client because I was just, after that was concluded, I was like, you're a piece of shit. I don't want to work for you because like I was embarrassing to have to go to the other side and have a client that was.
I'm not in law at all, but I am in kind of professional services in a way in tech, and I get paid a lot just to engage and work with my customers. But God, does it burn me to no end when they're doing dumb shit and I can't talk them out of it, and I get paid great on it. But I'm like, guys, I'm here to be an advocate for you. Please don't do dumb shit like this.
Yeah.
I could save you so much money if you weren't making irrational decisions, and I'm benefiting from it, but at the same time, it feels terrible.
Yeah, and like, and as a lawyer, you fundamentally benefit from other people's misfortune, right? Like that is like the name of the game, is that people don't call you up when everything's going really well, and you're not that busy when everything's going really well, unless you're doing deals, right? And when you're doing deals, then it's the, that's the usual stuff where you do negotiation. But like, there's a way to do it where you can have the other side can be adverse to you, and you can be negotiating hard with them, and like, you still don't, like, you can still conduct yourself in a manner where like it's one fun thing the English do actually on this is if you're ever in litigation with someone in the UK, it's very different from being in litigation with someone in the US. So in the US, I find that if you get a demand letter, it's usually like 4 pages long. They're citing like the various provisions of the CPLR. I had some asshole like fucking send my client a demand letter to not honor a subpoena with which my client had been served by the other side of a piece of litigation. And the guy gets on the phone with me and he's like, well, the CPLR, has an obligation to meet and confer. It's like, my client's not a party to this case. The other side sent me a subpoena. It was validly domesticated. Like, get fucked. Like you send me a 4-page demand letter citing case law. I'm like, I have no idea like who you are or what this litigation is. So they bombard you with all of this. They get really angry and they load it with case law and they make demands and this and that. Whereas in England, you'll get these replies all the time. Someone will send some asshole letter like that, and then the other side will write back, do so and so. Thank you very much for your letter of October the 5th. We found it very confusing. So they'll just very dry English humor, just being like, we're perplexed by your letter. It's very strange. We don't understand what this is. Please go away. Thank you so much. So it's a very different approach where you don't get as aggressive or as adversarial because the profession is just really different than it is in the US. And I prefer it that way.
Makes sense. I like it. Very objective take. It's good.
I guess what I'm trying to say is you can be it's possible to be like a really zealous advocate for your own interests while also just like, if the situation just gets too hot or too out of control, you can just kind of throw your hands up and walk away quietly, right? So, which I think that's something that most people don't like doing, but once you kind of adopt it as a sort of standard operating procedure for interacting with the world, it prevents you from. Has anyone ever heard the Jumbotron rule? It's a rule about sending text messages. Anyone ever heard that before?
No.
So the Jumbotron rule is a rule that I initially came across when it's like, how should you send text messages to women? if you're communicating with them. And the Jumbotron rule basically is if you wouldn't want to see it on the Jumbotron at Fenway Park, don't write it down. Don't send it. So like, don't get angry.
Oh, God, that rule would not serve me well at all.
Why not?
I would send anything.
Jesus Christ. That OPSEC. No, no, but like actually for me, I look at it differently. I say, what if an intelligence agency was to print out one of your posts and then put it in front of you and be like, do you think this looks good on print? You should have the ability to say yes. And as a matter of fact, you should have the foresight to imagine if it was an analyst that looks at it and says, this is actually kind of tight. Like, would I be, like, whenever I sent anything out there, I asked myself, would this look good on print? You know? What if somebody once asked me in the future, hey, you said these things in a post on X.com? And it's like, yep. What do you think of those things? And it's either, well, I think at the time it made a lot of sense because, you know, this was the environment, and I can explain to you what the environment was. Or it's like, there is no change in the environment, and it's something that is actually true. It'd be like, oh yeah, absolutely still represent it, and I will stand by that. Yeah. You know, that's the kind of thing you want. That's the thing that I do. Even with texts, it like depends on who I'm talking to as well. But mainly I just map whenever I have a conversation with what exactly do I want out of this, and what do I think the other person in this conversation wants out of this text, you know? And you consider like, what if somebody took this text and actually leaked it, you know? That's where we start at. It's like, hey, what if somebody screenshotted this and posted it on the timeline? I consider this, you know? Because people will do this at some point. You can't just like, you know. So exceptionality comes with like the threat of a type of consequence at the hands of someone who does not want to play fairly, because the world is not fair. It is terrible, but it could be fair only if it's meritable.
It's the same thing. Like in our business, it's do you want to see this in front of a judge? Because when someone sues your client, and then congratulations. Like you have to suddenly image all of your computers and all of your servers, and do searches and turn over responsive documents to the other side. So like the number of times I was working on a cartel case in Europe.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah, that was fun. So I was working, but like I wasn't like running it. I was just this little puke trainee solicitor in my second 6 months of work, and we were going through a rotation on this cartel case. And it was an auto parts there were a whole bunch of auto parts cartels or like collusion and abusive dominant position cases in Europe about 15 years ago. So they had the auto glass was one, they had wire harnesses was another. So anyway, I digress. So we were doing this, and you're going through these emails where these guys are we're sitting at companies using company resources and company time, like sending each other pornography like in emails sent in the clear on company servers, just be like, haha, LOL, that's funny. And like there's a team of 15 lawyers sitting there looking through this, all of their communications to find, I think we went through like 3 million emails, going through these emails to try to find information about which individuals in the company communicated with individuals at other companies to fix prices on these particular widgets that they were contracting out for. So like if Renault, for example, wanted a particular widget that went on its wire harness, a little plug, and then I don't know, so there'd be two providers of the plug, right? Company A